Hi, I want to do a very quick segment today on some retouching for skin and address a really crappy thing I see out there, which is people photoshopping away freckles and all skin texture completely, and it's just a really crappy thing. So, um, what I wanted to do was bring up a small section of a photo here and let me hide this real quick. Um, to talk about real quick about leaving freckles in while still doing the retouching that you want to do. And my general philosophy on retouching is this: is that I don't want to remove anything that's part of who someone is, but I don't have a problem removing temporary things. So, very typical thing is that a lot of the people I work with are very active, and they do a lot of sports and different things, and they might have bruises on their knees, scratches on their legs, that sort of stuff. Yeah, Photoshop that away, no problem. Um, and things like acne and stuff like that, it is another thing. It's not really part of who they are. It's just a temporary thing that happened that day. So there is no need for that to stay in the photograph. Um, I never remove beauty marks and moles and stuff like that unless someone asks me to. And sometimes I'll even ask people, hey, is there anything that you specifically want me to remove in an image? Or sometimes when they first see the images, they'll say, I should have told you this, Brian, but could you remove such and such? That sort of thing. So that's generally how I work. So in a photograph like this, and I'm only showing a portion of the image here, I want to talk really quickly about identifying freckles versus acne, which a lot of people can do it really easily. And once you do this for a while, um, it's almost like you're a dermatologist. You can really identify the difference really quickly. But when you're first starting out, it might be hard, and you don't want to be overzealous about removing every dot on the skin. All right. So one of the things I'll see is something like this effect, which I think is just horrible. It's where people smooth out faces to the point where there's no texture left at all. It's just no freckles, no beauty marks, nothing. It looks very alien, plastic. It's just horrible, very flat looking, no character at all. And we don't want that. Um, we love freckles. They're awesome, And one of the things I'm actually starting to see, which I like, is more and more people accentuating the freckles in the photographs, and there's ways that you can do that, and it's not easy to do that. You might think you could do some quick levels and curves and contrast stuff to do that. It's actually a lot more detailed manual work to accentuate the freckles, but you can do that. And I've even seen where I think Flern, which is one of my favorite online resources, I think they've even got brushes for adding freckles now, which I think is great. So anyway, let's move on to identifying what might be a temporary blemish versus a freckle. So, all right. So when we're looking through here, the one of the first things that you'll start to notice as you take more and more photos is where it's more common on a face to have a temporary blemish. And once you realize that, it makes spotting it a little bit easier. And um, the let me just draw. Bear with me for 1 second. This area here is where you'll see a lot more temporary blemishes. This diamond area here. Um, So that's one way to kind of look for it, and it applies in this photograph. So definitely that can help. Um, Another thing is that you just generally get to be able to spot um, uh, temporary blemishes by a few different ways. One of the easiest ways is by them looking three-dimensional. Okay, so a bump on my face is actually going to have some texture, and the light's going to hit in a certain way, which means it'll have a little bit of a shadow, a little bit of a highlight because it's three-dimensional. It's a bump, right? But if I've got a freckle, then it's actually like part of my skin. There's no texture to a freckle. It's just there. So it's going to be very flat in appearance. So let me give you an example. So if you look right here, that's very flat, you know. But here you can see some texture. You can see a highlight here on the right and a shadow. So that's like a three-dimensional. That's a bump that you can see. So that makes it really easy to identify ones like that. A second way to identify is by color. Okay, so you'll notice that a lot of the uh, freckles here have more of a brownish texture. If you see right through here, they're all brownish textures. And then you'll see down here, these are parts that I'm going to clean up are reddish in texture. So a temporary blemish is almost always a red hue. It doesn't have that same aged pigment as a freckle. So that makes it an easy way to look. But there's another way, and I'm going to turn on this layer here to look at to bring up a hue saturation layer to where you can see the blemishes. And I'm actually going to redo this layer so you can actually see how I do this. Delete that layer. I'm going to add a hue saturation layer. And what I'm going to start with is the reds, just for a starting point. And what I want to do is I want to shift the color. And it doesn't really matter. I'm not going to leave this color. It's just for identifying. It's just a temporary thing. So I'm going to switch it to maybe something like that. Good. That color. And then I'm going to move down here to this selection which says the top color bar says I'm going to take this color and I'm going to turn it into this color. So this red turns into this blue. And you're going to see these different lines here. And just to explain what they mean, this center part here that's lighter, that's the color it's going to affect the most. And then this part on the left and the part on the right are kind of like a feathered part that will also be affected, but to a much lesser extent. Okay, so that's just feathering. Now I can actually click in here and I can move, and as I move, you'll see it selects different parts of the photo. And interestingly enough, when you move it to a certain range, I'll say right in here, that's a great place for spotting, where some of the acne spots are. And here's why. So you'll notice that some of the spots right here are isolated in pink now, along with a few more of the spots over here, here, here. Now there's some general color in the cheeks just because of the the temperature that day or whatever, but once again, that's easy to spot because it's a large area and it's very what do you call it? It's very gradual. It's got a gentle fall off to it, so you can tell that that's more of just like a general area. But this way, this kind of identified several spots that if you weren't able to tell the difference, now you can kind of get an idea. And of course, you can just ignore the color of the lips but so it gives you some spots to work with. Right. So I'm going to turn that off. And what I'm going to do is just bring in the spot healing brush, and it's set to content aware, and sample all layers. And on a new layer, I'm just going to remove some of these. One of the things that you'll notice with, trying to make sure I get all the ones that were identified there. One of the things that you'll notice with the spot healing brush is that occasionally the edges are not perfect. And spot healing brush is one of those tools that Adobe keeps getting better and better all the time, but they've still got a little ways to go with it. So in some cases, what I'll do is I'll just do some general work with a spot healing brush, and then I'll move over to the healing brush, which I like a lot more in how it handles some of the texturing and definitely the edges. So I like that. So what we've done here is we've removed almost all of any temporary blemishes that were on the skin there. And what we're left with is a very natural, um, look. And I'm going to zoom in here really quick. And I'm just going to use spot healing brush. Remove a couple of those little lighter areas there. Go back out. And that's a much healthier, natural version than doing something like this, which is the alien skin approach. So this is after those blemishes are removed, and that's before, and that's after. So you've still got the natural look, but it's just a cleaner look. You know, it's like someone on a good skin day. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. So I hope that helps. This isn't a completely retouched image. There's more work I would definitely do to this part of the image, but I just want to talk about keeping the freckles in and just removing temporary blemishes, and that's all. So that was kind of the general topic for this one. I hope that's been helpful, and please like us on. If you can hear that in the background, that's my dog barking in her sleep. That's hilarious. Um, so I hope you've enjoyed it. Follow us on Twitter at Brian Clary Photo, and like us on Facebook. And I appreciate it. Have a good day. Thanks.